Hey, how are you doing? Welcome back to my channel. I am Victoria-Monique, and this is going to be a short one today. I'm going to read to you from The Law and the Promise of Neville, chapter 12, Attitudes, because that's what I felt called and inspired to do for you. And also, I read a Reddit post that is so good that I will link in the description. You are going to love this, especially if you're into conscious creation, into Neville teachings, and into creating the best possible life for yourself. This is definitely going to assist you in your persistence. And also, I heard something recently said by Edward Art. I am so digging his material. This dude is amazingly good at translating Neville's teachings into a modern way, and also it's his perspective, and he has a really good perspective. You can really hear and feel that he knows the roads within himself. He knows the roads of him. He knows who he is. He knows how his life works. And that's what Neville, Christ, Bashar, Buddha, Abraham Hicks, Seth, the Council, Dragon, what all of them came and are coming to teach us is how do we know ourselves? How do we navigate physical reality, because we are spirits having a human experience. This is what I heard in one of the videos of Edward. He said, you can have, but if you are not being it, or what was it? I wrote it down. Oh yeah. Just because you have doesn't mean you are it. Just because you have doesn't mean you are it. And I had to think of this saying, God cannot be mocked, because you can have a thing when you're not being it. Doesn't mean shit, does it? And that's why when some people win the lottery, they blow the money like super quickly. That's why some artists have a one-hit wonder and you hear nothing anymore from them. And there are many examples like that. People have something, but they haven't changed who they are. It was like, yeah, whatever. I don't want to get into that too deep. The other thing that I want to say about this particular saying, just because you have doesn't mean you are. Do you guys know the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz? You can read it if you want. It's a good read. I'll give you the gist of it. Or just go on YouTube and find, because a lot of people have made summaries of the book. So this is the gist of the book. Dr. Maxwell Maltz used to be, plastic surgeon. He used to be a plastic surgeon, and he found something really interesting. And that was that some of the people that he reconstructed their face of, for instance, would still have a shitty life experience meaning they would still be insecure, they would still feel unworthy of whatever they felt unworthy of. They would be the same person but with a different look, with a different face, like literally a different nose. And other people would have like a facial reconstruction or another reconstruction of their body, and they would change and their luck would change, and how they behaved and how they were in the world would change. And so he got so curious that he went to explore, like, how is it that some people, change and others stay the same while they literally physically changed. And he found out that it was because of self-talk. He also did another experiment. I think it was him who did the experiment, but I don't remember correctly, like exactly, and it doesn't matter because it's about the outcome of the experiment. So there was a group of kids, let's say a school in an area that wasn't the best area to live in. And all these kids had really low grades in school. I don't know if it was across the board or this was about a particular subject, but let's just say for the sake of this story that it was one particular subject. And he or someone else taught them to start changing their self-talk and start saying to themselves, I'm good at this subject. I'm good at, let's say, maths. I'm super good at maths. I'm a star in maths. I'm so good in maths or math. And what happened was that the kids that changed their self-talk actually also got good grades. So we all know this, right? It's about changing the feeling of I, changing who you are, changing what you say to yourself and how you speak to yourself. And you can do that by scripting and affirming. What you're actually doing is allowing yourself to shift states, because these are just tools to get you to shift states. And so if you remember one of my previous videos that I did, I told you that for me now it's pretty easy to just shift, because I know the feeling that comes with the shift. So I just have to, it's actually kind of like click my fingers and I'm there in the version of me that I want to be. And the coolest, like, it's so cool how I see reflections outside of me in people and things and situations that happen, which prove to me that I have shifted states. And obviously, it's not about just shift one time and go back and forth and in and out. It's about wearing the new suit, as Neville says. The new suit, the new man, the new suit. Like at first it's uncomfortable. It might be too big. And I like the too big because we're growing into it. We're expanding. Not physically, hopefully, or maybe it's what you wish. I like to be like tight and like muscly, and actually, well, my shoulders and my chest have grown. So yeah, anyway, not really important. It's metaphorically speaking. We expand and we start to fit that suit, because our current suit, it's too small for us. We don't appreciate it anymore, or at least maybe you do like where you are. Somehow, I think you also like to expand, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about that. Now I'm going to read you not such a long, but a nice one that, again, I opened randomly. Well, nothing is random. That I opened, guided by our dear departed and not so departed, because he's here, Neville, our dear Mr. Goddard. Okay. The Law and the Promise, Chapter 12, Attitudes. Mental things are alone real. What is called corporeal, nobody knows of its dwelling place. It is in fallacy, and its existence an imposture. Where is the existence out of mind or thought? Where is it but in the mind of a fool? Blake. Memory, though faulty, is adequate to the call for sameness. If we remember another as we have known him, we recreate him in that image, and the past will be recognized in the present. Imagining creates reality. If there is room for improvement, we should reconstruct him with new content. Content. Okay, let's do this sentence again. If there is room for improvement, we should reconstruct him with new content. Visualize him as we would like him to be, rather than have him bear the burden of our memory of him. Him bearing the burden of our memory of him. Everything possible to be believed is an image of truth. So real truth is in the imagining, right? You might remember Neville saying that before, if you know his work. The following story is by one who believes that imagining creates reality, and acting on this belief changed his attitude toward a stranger and bore witness to this change in reality. A side note, I love how this is the chapter that the book opened on while considering this phrase of just because you have, it doesn't mean you are. And then thinking of Maxwell Maltz, and then, I mean, you can make that stuff up. It's just perfection. More than 20 years ago, when I was a green farm boy, newly arrived in Boston to attend school, a panhandler asked me for money for a meal. Although the money I had was pitifully insufficient for my own needs, I gave him what was in my own pocket. A few hours later, the same man, by this time staggering drunk, stopped me again and asked for money. I was so outraged to think the money I could so ill afford had been put to such use. I made myself a solemn pledge that I would never again listen to the plea of a street beggar. Through the years, I kept my pledge, but every time I refused anyone, my conscience needled me. I felt guilty even to the point of developing a sharp pain in my stomach, but I couldn't bring myself to unbend. The early part of this year, a man stopped me as I was walking my dog and asked for money so he could eat. True to the old pledge, I refused him. His manner, oh my God, goosebumps. Whew. His manner was gracious as he accepted my refusal. He even admired my dog and spoke of a family in New York State he knew that raised Cocker Spaniels. This time, my conscience was really pricking me. As he went on his way, I determined to remake that scene as I wished it had been. So I stopped right there on the street, closed my eyes for only a few moments, and enacted the scene differently. In my imagination, I had the same man approach me, only this time he opened the conversation by admiring my dog. After we had talked a moment, I had him say, "I don't like to ask you this, but I really need something to eat. I have a job that begins tomorrow morning, but I've been out of work and tonight I'm hungry." I then reached into my imaginary pocket, pulled out an imaginary $5 bill, and gladly gave it to him. This imaginal act immediately dissolved the guilty feeling and the pain. I know from your teaching that an imaginal act is fact, so I knew I could grant anyone what he asked, and by faith in the imaginal act, consent to the reality of his having it. 4 months later, as I was again walking my dog, the same man approached me and opened the conversation by admiring my dog. "Here's a beautiful dog," he said. "Young man, I don't suppose you remember me, but a while back I asked you for some money and you very kindly said no. I say kindly because if you had given it to me, I would still be asking for money. Instead, I got a job that very next morning, and now I'm on my feet and have some self-respect again. I knew his job was a fact when I imagined it that night some 4 months before. But I won't deny there was immense satisfaction in having him appear in the flesh to confirm it. F.B. I have no silver and gold, but I give you what I have. None is to be discarded. All must be saved, and our imagination reshaping memory is the process whereby this salvation is brought to pass. To condemn the man for having lost his way is to punish the already punished. Oh, whom should I pity if I pity not the sinner who has gone astray? Not what the man was, but what he may become should be our imaginal activity. Don't you remember sweet Alice? Ben Bolt, sweet Alice whose hair was so brown, who wept with delight when you gave her a smile, trembled with fear at your frown. If we imagine no worse of him than he of himself, he would pass as excellent. It's not the man at his best, but the imaginist exercising the spirit of forgiveness that performs the miracle, imagining with new content, transformed both the man who asked and the man who gave. Okay, I want to stop here, and I'm going to stop here. And I want to go back to this part because it's so brilliant. So what this dude did, he didn't imagine the guy immediately having a job. He imagined also first by relieving himself, giving the money to him. Like he gave the money to him and he altered the story into such a brilliant way that the man, the panhandler, which you can't make up either. I just recently learned about that word. I had no idea that panhandler meant beggar. But anyway, side note, it's a series on Amazon Prime. So it's brilliant what he did, because it wasn't like a super big shift from A to the letter Y in the alphabet. It was from A to, let's say, C or D. He just, like, a couple of things were still the same. The beggar was still the beggar, but the narrative changed, and the man also allowed him relief by giving him the money. Because he wanted the relief, right? He felt the resistance of, shit, I do want to give him money, but I promised it to myself. So in imagination, he gave him the money. So he felt the relief, and then he changed the whole story. Or not the whole story, because the man was still a beggar, but he changed the outcome of the story. So the moral of this short, which is turned into still a pretty long video, I just wanted to do 10 minutes, but hey, who cares? Is that when you revise, when you use revision, just make it super close to what it is that you are looking to revise and give yourself relief. It doesn't have to be a big jump, no? It can be like really easy. So when you do revision, I hardly revise. I love being in the moment, and I love shifting states, because for me, a state shift is already a change in past, because the person who experienced something that they didn't like is a different version of me also already, because we shift all the time. So the past isn't real only when I remember it to be real, but also The version of me that has experienced a certain thing is a certain version of me, is a certain state. And a different state of me would never have had that experience in the first place. So there are different ways to roam. Choose whichever one feels best to you, rocks your boat, floats your boat, whatever the expression is. And then go with that and have fun with it, because it's mostly, life is about having fun. These teachings are here for us to discover that we are Christ, that we have Christ as our wonderful human imagination, that we are God's, and that we can have and create the most amazing, wonderful life for ourselves. This was it. I trust you enjoyed it. If you'd like to work with me, then check the description. If not, I love you just the same, and I will see you in the next. Peace.